Hey, welcome back to another episode of Warrior Spirit, where we let the inner warrior shine in their light. Today, I have Michelle Aalbers, and Michelle was on previously, almost 9 months ago. So I was thrilled to have her come back on. She's a wonderful Reiki master, intuitive healer, coach, author, teacher. She's just an all-around spirit and light that I love being around, and over the last 9 months has actually also become a good friend. So Michelle, welcome back.
Thank you for having me. I'm grateful to be here, but I'm also really grateful for the deeper connections that we have been building. And yeah, it's funny how the people that are meant to come into your life come into your life, and you're just like, I get it now.
Yeah. What often starts as a random just hello, oftentimes turns into a deeper friendship if you allow it to. So I always like to pick my family, because the one that I picked originally when I came here was for different sets of lessons. So yeah. I like the ones that I get to now pick consciously, and you're definitely one of our soul sisters. So we appreciate you.
I appreciate you guys too. Yeah, I love it. It was like, I was called to reach out and connect with you and ask you some questions about a couple things when we very first connected in a group. And then I got your wife in the package deal too. So
yeah, it's a twofer.
Yeah.
Well, we often refer to ourselves in the twin flame message, and those who are out there that understand the spirituality of twin flames, we're a twofer.
Yeah.
So last time we talked about some of your early life and some of the traumas that you overcame, and you shared some really deep interpersonal experiences. But you also talked about your journey back, and how now those traumas allowed you to be a catalyst to heal and help others. Since we've last talked 9 months ago, there's been some really great healing and transformation in your world. And so kind of tell us where you are today.
Yeah, it's been interesting, and so much has changed. It's like when you said 9 months ago, I was like, oh gosh, I was like, I mean, just thinking about a business structure. The thing is like I am me in all things that I do. So I just think like I have transformed on so many different levels and in so many different ways throughout the last 9 months. And I just think, oh my gosh, I hadn't really put it like connected dots until you just said that. And I'm like, holy shit, that took a lot of courage. Like, which I don't consider myself like a big risk taker or a super courageous human. I'm driven and I'm inspired and I'm a lot of different things. But like when you said it, there was something about the way you said it. I was like, I stepped into courage in a way that I just haven't. And I had to, and I'm speaking specifically of, I'm no longer doing my one-to-one Thai sessions and my one-to-one Reiki sessions. They're very, very, very limited in that they're only available and accessible to my masterminders, and only rarely. So it's just it. And that was where I started. That was a huge piece of my business. And there was intense grief and sadness when I kept hearing, right? Spiritually, I kept hearing that I was supposed to teach more and transform what I was doing and show up for people and for myself in different ways. And dang, if I didn't resist that shift.
Mm-hmm. Well, what's interesting about you is that, you're not a newbie. I mean, you've been doing energy and healing work for 12 years, and so even an experienced person in this healing journey is still transforming, still morphing, and still healing. I said this to you a few days ago or a month ago now, whatever, because I've been around a lot of energy workers, and I've been around a ton of people who are coaches, right? Coaches, an overused term. I've been doing it for 40 years. I just now started actually calling myself one. But the interesting thing about you and versus some of the other people that I've encountered, and I said this to you, others will go in with a stick of dynamite and just blow shit up. And they don't really care where the pieces fall. Their whole goal is to, you have a problem, we're going to blow it out at its root, and we'll pick up the pieces as we go. which isn't always what everybody needs. Some of us need it, but not everyone. And so you are more like, to me, an archaeologist or an excavator. You go in and gently sweep away the layer with the brush, and we find out what's there. And then, okay, we work on that. And then you sweep away the next layer. And you have this very methodical, gentle way of uncovering what we need to heal from, which then allows us to actually deal with each segmented piece and heal better. Maybe not fully, but certainly gentler and easier on ourselves. So I just love that about you, that you're not the stick of dynamite that's going to go in there and blow shit up. You still have the humanity in there that, hey, some people need this thing. And I equate that to when I was helping people get their doctorate degree. Because I would tell each one of my students, I have a set of boots and a set of pom-poms on my desk. Which are we using today?
Yeah.
Right? Because if you need the boot, okay, today's the boot day. But if you need the hug and you need the affirmations, then okay, I have the capacity to deal with you where you are today. I didn't just like kick everyone in the ass, right? And I love that about you.
That's one of the night. I mean, when you said that, it literally took my breath away. I was like, oh, I'm speechless. That doesn't happen all that often.
Right.
And it was, you put into words my intentions that I know in my heart, but I have a hard time describing them. But even the beauty of do you need the boot or the pom-poms? Here's what I see in that. A, you give them a choice. And B, if you feel like they might need the boot, but they pick the pom-poms, I also know you're a human who will go in and like maybe ask a few questions and drive them to the boot.
Yeah.
It's like, that's it. It's like, I think, my goal isn't to make things happen as quick as possible. I don't believe that's necessarily the best way to heal. I think sometimes, I think about my experience in Thailand with Master Pichette and him working on me. I released a ton of stuff that day. I don't know what I released but it didn't feel like a stick of dynamite, and I didn't feel like I needed to revisit it. And sometimes, but I chose it. Clearly my energy body, my spiritual body chose to release whatever happened that day. But I think if we don't give ourselves the opportunity to choose it, it will come back. It will resurface. It will, I don't know. I just think, going in and blowing shit up is tricky business. And I think sometimes a softer approach can be way more profound and create a way deeper healing experience. And ultimately, it's about what are we ready for? And sometimes we think we know what the nugget is. And it's just that surface layer stuff that is like, it's like ourselves getting in our own way going, oh, I want to deal with this thing up here because there's this hidden thing down here that I'm not ready to look at yet. But the reality is if you don't take care of this thing up here and the thing in the middle and the thing in the middle, you just go right to the root. There's still other stuff you got to look at some point. And it gets maybe deeper and messier if you haven't like addressed it first. We can know what the root cause is and start somewhere else, but just knowing it is huge, that awareness.
Yeah, it's almost like a glacier in the ocean. Like you only see the top layer, but there's a whole lot of glacier underneath of it, right?
Yeah, and it's huge, it's complex, and it's hard to get to.
And if you just blow up the glacier from underneath, well, now you got a lot of little glaciers. Like what the hell do I do with that, right?
And sometimes they spread far and wide.
Yeah.
It's like it was a nice contained little bubble before.
Right.
Now it's everywhere, and we got to find it in all those other places,
Well, I had the opportunity to watch your process in person, and for the person you were working with, they released, according to them, the most amount of trauma in all the time that they've been working on their trauma. And I witnessed physical, mental, and spiritual transformation. And it was not just, oh, here's a little release. It was a violent release of energy, like an atomic bomb of energy had exploded in that person. But you also did it in such a gentle and caring and loving way that person never even felt like you had released all that trauma. And you said something very profound that day. You said, we have issues in our tissues, which really has resonated with me because, we all carry our stress and our burdens somewhere in our body. And if we've done it excessively, almost generationally, we've taken on all of, our parents' issues, our relatives' issues, our grandparents' issues, and we've carried that somewhere in us that it manifests in a physical way. And when you said issues in your tissues, and I saw that cataclysmic release and actually a physical change in that person's body, like they went from a rigid, stiff cell to a more malleable cell because all that stress was gone out of it. It was just amazing.
Yeah, I have goosebumps the whole time you're talking there. I mean, it was a visceral healing, like we feel it. Sometimes we feel it in our mind. Sometimes we feel it in our body. Sometimes we feel it in our spirit. We don't even realize it. But moving that energy, moving that stuck, that keeps us in the suck. Ugh, it's so gross, but it's also beautiful. And the release of that is, that experience that day was such a beautiful process. And you would think, I'm comparing it, which is maybe not fair, but I think about my experience on the mat in Thailand. It sounded and looked visually from everyone else like such a awful thing. And for me, it was relief. It was freedom. It was joy. But the sounds coming out of my body sure didn't seem like that, but it was like from that day is when my thighs started softening and my legs weren't bricks anymore. My knee now has issues when my glutes get tight. I know that, but it's because of habits that I've formed, not because of trauma that's stuck in my body. It's like, oh, I just need to remember to move differently or sit differently or actually get up and move, not sit at my computer for 10 hours a day, and it's just moving that energy. And the thing is like, I never know what's going to happen on the Thai mat or in a Reiki session or in an intuitive session. Tarot, right? Like it doesn't matter. Tarot, Reiki, Thai, coaching. I don't super love that word, but I don't know of a better one yet. I'm still trying to figure it out, because I feel like coaching implies that I'm telling them what to do. And it's more like, here's how it feels, what I'm seeing. Here's my intuitive hits that I'm experiencing and my life experience that I can share with you. And then you get to choose and decide which ones work for you. But to be fair, it's no different than the Thai mat. They get to choose what's ready to go. And there is no forcing. My intention is always, may this healing be for the best and highest good. May it continue until it's full and complete. And may they only receive what they're open and ready for. Period. End of story. But that invitation, there is something about that invitation and that intention that creates a safe space on an energetic level. I've found that it can be profound. Sometimes people, the very first time I work with them, can have like these crazy profound experiences. And it's because on some vibrational level, this is how it feels to me. On some vibrational level, we've already built trust, like at that soul light level. And when that happens, like when we can let our guard down, so to speak, those protective layers that we put on that keep us, in that stuck space. And when we can open to the idea of, releasing from the attachment to the things that we do know and releasing from whatever it is that we don't know and just allowing divine guidance to pour into us. Those sessions are healing for me too. Ooh, goosebumps again. Like it's just, that's one of the things I love about both Thai and Reiki. They are giver and receiver healing. It's a two-way street. It's not like I'm here to do this thing for you or to you. It's no, like we are opening to divine guidance and we see where that takes us. And it is amazing and incredible. And it changed my life, which was so hard to give it up. That's why it was so hard for me to give it up, because it was a really powerful way for me to work with people. And then my body was starting to say, maybe not on the floor anymore,
Well, people, if they understand energy at all and understand that we are all energy, and that's not woo, that's science, that's data driven, scientifically proven, we are energy. And if people understand that, it's like an electrical current. If you shut the switch off, the light goes off and no more electricity comes. The electricity is still there, still waiting. You just got to turn the flip the switch so that it flows again, which just triggered a memory. I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in rural, Iowa. And as dumb kids, we used to go out to the farm and form a chain, and each grab one end of the electrical fence, right? Now, as long as the first person and the last person held on to the fence at the same time, you could just feel the current buzz through you. But as soon as one idiot let go, that next person in line felt the entire zap. Like it was like, so, but you, as long as you were letting it flow from one to the other, but as soon as you cut it off, it was a big
you
no-no
needed that
zap.
complete circuit.
Yeah. You need to complete the circuit. And our body is the same exact way.
Yeah.
We need to complete the circuit. And so many people, they complain and they are wondering why they're not, getting the life that they want or the life that they live, because they're not completing the circuit. Something in them is blocking that current from fully flowing through. And I've told many clients before, like, if you want to receive, do you receive with your hands like this? Or do you receive with your hands like this?
Right.
Right. If one is closed, you can't receive anything into it.
That brings me to dynamite, right?
Yeah.
You get your hand gripped on dynamite, it'll work, but dang, whereas if it's like this, it's like you're inviting in what you're ready to invite in. And it's so powerful. And both are powerful. Well, I just feel like one is beneficial and the other one is like, well, now we've created more mess that we need to clean up. And we might have gotten rid of a few nuggets and that's great. But also, it's not my style. I don't prefer to heal that way. It feels to me like a forced hug. And it's like, I'm not interested, like if I hear an energetic no from you, I don't want a freaking hug.
Mm-hmm.
And that's no different than healing. If I hear an energetic no, I'm not looking for a practitioner that's going to go in and just say, yep, this is what you need. Here it happened. Like, no. What are you ready for? What are your goals? What are you looking for? And if your goals are different than what I'm hearing is right for you, or what I'm hearing your guides are saying for you, let's have a conversation about that and unpack maybe where the resistance is coming from. Because I feel like so many times I'm learning this over time, and the tarot has helped me with this a lot. So many times, like, I'm going to use tarot as an example, but I'll get there. I'll say something in a tarot reading that will then, it's like, I say a thing and they're like, oh, it wasn't actually about that, but that led me here. And that was a place I needed to get to uncover this thing that brought me back to this thing. It's like what I say in the tarot reading, like their intuitive hits are way louder than mine. And that's the same thing with the healing, right? Like I might get an intuitive hit, I share with them, and then they chew on it. They're like, it's not quite right, but let me discern and assess inwardly. And then it leads them to where they like, I'm human and I have divine connection. We all do. We all have that access. It's just if we choose it or not. That's how it feels for me. I could be wrong about absolutely everything that I think I know. And I get that, but in the now, I'm just going to show up with what feels true for me. And this is how I show up in the world. And I'm going to do that authentically and honestly, and we'll see where we go. But it just feels like so many times, spirit speaks my language. I translate it into, your language, and then you translate it, connect it with your divine language. And then your divine highest self and that inner wisdom takes you exactly where you needed to go to clean up, which isn't I don't super love that, because I don't believe there's anything wrong with us, right? I believe we experience life. It has ups, it has downs. Every experience that we have, we filter through all our previous experiences, and then we show up accordingly based on if we're triggered or centered or, like where we're coming from energetically, I guess is the way I'll put it. It's complicated, but it's also so easy.
It's complicated, but we make it harder.
Yeah.
Like it can be complex, but easy at the same time. As a matter of fact, life can be that way. Like when I hear people say, life is so hard, it doesn't have to be. I mean, it's complex. It has its hard moments, but we're allowed, if we try to heal and reprogram from the shit that we were programmed as children, we're allowed to have a gentler, easier life. It doesn't have to be hard. It may be hard right now, but you don't have to keep it hard.
Yeah. I feel like I grew up making my life so much harder than it had to be. And it was simply because I was not comfortable in my own skin. I didn't trust myself and I wasn't showing up for myself in a kind way. And I feel like now life can be a good challenge and I'm up for that challenge. And I still make it harder than it has to be sometimes when I'm triggered in my shit or when I have another layer surfacing, like I've been working with my teacher and getting massage and Reiki and all of that. And they've been powerful sessions. And she's like, Michelle, you're going into the abyss. I'm like, I know, I'm ready, and that used to scare me. Now I'm like, no, I get it. I'm going into another shadow self and I'm okay with that. And it's going to I think that's why I cried yesterday, yesterday was an emotional day and that's okay. And it felt good. So
how long has it been since you were on that timeout to have that first?
Oh, that was 2012.
Okay. So in 11 years, you're still digging and processing and getting stuff out, right? It's a never, people think that it's a destination. Like, okay, I'm going to work on this. I'm going to be healed and then I'm going to be perfectly okay. Most of us who have been in the healing space have been working on this for decades, and it's never an end destination. It's just another layer to get through. And some of us have more layers than others. So some of us actually do evolve to a higher, plane. But I don't think you're ever problem free or fully over, or, whatever. I think you're just better equipped to. I think you're just better equipped to deal with it, right?
Oh, for sure, because you learn tools along the way. You learn your tools that work, and the other key piece is you learn the things that you do, like your patterns that keep you stuck. So then you're like, oh, I caught myself in that pattern. I have an awareness around that. Now I'm going to take accountability and I'm going to choose. And to be fair, sometimes I'm like, no, this pattern is comfortable for me. And this is too hard for me to move through right now. I'm going to stay in this pattern for a hot second. And then I'm going to call in my team and I'm going to have them help me move out of that pattern. But I need to make sure that I am fully supported before I step into that really, really uncomfortable space. But I never used to have that awareness or that discernment. I used to just be in full blown messy mind, really mean to myself, unachievable expectations, and really just dark. I was dark. My mind was dark to myself. I still can be unkind to myself, but it's just different. I'm like, oh, there it is. There's that voice. And you're going to go on the table and I'm going to go meditate now for a little while, or, I'm going to friend, or I'm going to just go to a float tank and give myself that, water hug, or go for, I know my self-care tools that can help me navigate through the hard stuff. But yeah, I think short of enlightenment, I don't really think there's ever going to not be another layer. I think there will always be something. And I think, everyone that comes across my path is here to teach. Like, we're here to teach each other, good, bad, or indifferent. And I believe it's all good, even the hard stuff, because it leads us to that next skill set, that skill level, where we have another tool to help us navigate a really hard thing. And
well, we're both part of we've studied Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi, their business partners, and we both attended some of their stuff. And Dean always says our goal isn't to not have problems. Our goal is to be better, to be able to handle bigger problems. Yeah. Because the stronger you grow and the more healed you are, the bigger problems you can handle. You don't have to get freaked out by every little tiny thing. You can now evolve to handling something a little bit bigger in your life.
Yeah. And that's true of the problems. I was like, I'm thinking about like the spiral path, right? And how we have our spiritual life lessons that we're working on. For me, patience is a huge one. And I just heard something this morning. They were saying that like driven people with, high expectations for themselves and big goals tend to be impatient. And I was like, oh, that actually kind of makes a lot of sense. I guess I never really thought about it that way, but anyway, every time I come around that spiral path, I'm going to hit patience again. But every time I hit patience again, I have new skills, it feels different. Like I used to be impatient. It caused me frustration and anger. Now I'm impatient. I'm like, oh, there it is. This is me. Like now I'm tackling myself saying you're not doing it right, or you're not doing enough, or you could do better, or what have you missed, and then I'm like, oh, now I'm in that self-talk. I mean, I can literally catch myself in these swirls of how I'm showing up. But the impatience itself is just my relationship to it is different. Much like my relationship to fear. Like I still have fear a lot. And so many times I'm like, ooh, this is fear. What does that mean? Sometimes that's exciting because it means I'm about to do something that I wouldn't normally do that's going to lead me somewhere good, better, and different. It's going to teach me a lesson. I get to do that thing. And fear used to just stop me in my tracks. It's like, nope, not doing that. Don't want to fail. Nope, not doing that. Don't want to be seen failing. Nope, not doing that. Don't want to be seen at all, which is hysterical to me because my whole big thing growing up was I don't feel lovable and I just want to be seen and understood. Like I don't feel lovable because I'm not seen and understood. But I didn't even understand myself. And to be fair, I had a ton of love and support in my world. It wasn't that I didn't have access to it. It was that I couldn't feel it within myself, and that just blocked everything.
Yeah. And it's interesting because one of the modules in my course is called Ride the Fear to the Life of Your Dreams.
Oh.
So it's actually manifesting that transformation in yourself to take your approach of, okay, what's around the corner, what's next. I still have a little fear, and without fear we wouldn't need courage, because if there's nothing to fear, you don't have to be courageous about. If I'm walking outside and I know that there's no chance in the world that I'm going to be attacked by a lion, I don't have to be courageous if a lion approaches. There's not going to be one, right? But if you have something that makes you a little offset or just a little cautious or a little heightened. Like I know a lot of people who rock climb, and there is no need for courage without that little bit of fear. But what the fear does, and I've talked to them, what the fear does is it heightens their awareness and their senses so that they're better able to climb that rock.
And to keep themselves safe, and that's the other thing. Anytime fear comes in, my first assessment is, okay, is this, just me getting in my own way? Or do I actually need to use use all my senses and figure out what might be dangerous here? And, arguably when there's fear, there's a bit of danger no matter what, even if it's simply a business choice. Yeah. I had a lot of fear around changing my business structure. There was a lot of fear around that. Like, are people going to leave me? Are they going to be mad at me? All the things that might go in. How bad am I going to miss it? How long will I grieve? How do I stay connected? And it's tricky. But I also think fear brings us in to a place of let's open our eyes, our ears, our senses. For me, energy too, right? As an empath, I want to feel energetically, where is this coming from? Mm-hmm. Am I safe?
So in this transformation that you've still been in over these last 9 months and revamping your entire business, I do want to put one caveat though, that not everyone who is a healer or a helper or an empath or an intuitive or a Reiki, whatever, wants to do it as a business. So we're never saying, oh, part of your healing is to help teach others and do that. Some of that is just for you and to make you better at what you do. So I just want to put that caveat on there. But in your specific case, how has that transformation from where we were 9 months ago to where we are today showing up in your world?
Well, it's shifting everything. And I'm finding myself more willing to, I guess I'm going to say, move quicker when I get the intuitive download, or when I get that, divine download or spiritual hit, where I'm like, if I feel it in my being, I'm like, okay, I've launched 3 Facebook groups that previous to, 9 months ago, even, I would have been in way more perfectionist mode. They're not ready. I don't have all my ducks in a row. I don't have my schedule figured out, because my schedule got messy when you'd think it would open a lot more space, but it was but I was also, the reason I was being told to shift out of that and into something else was because I had a lot of new things coming and I needed that space. So I would have time to say yes to a lot of different new things. And I did say yes to a lot of different new things, which meant my schedule felt messy to me because it wasn't as organized and neat as it used to be. And so I was like, okay, I have these 3 groups that I want to launch. One I launched right away because I was ready to go. And the other 2 are still trickling out, if I'm being honest, today. But they're there and I'm starting to be actively engaged in them. And I was actually talking to a friend who is also going to be teaching in one. And I was like, I know it's not perfect, but it's it's good. Like there's resources there. And if I wait till it's perfect, it'll never launch. And she was like, yeah, it doesn't feel too messy. And I was like, okay, just because it feels messy to me, because I have this vision.
Yeah.
So I think it's just that was a long way of saying, I think just my willingness to say yes faster, and I also am hearing, feeling, knowing like quicker, because I'm understanding. I don't know, I'm not resisting my spiritual guidance anymore. And I didn't realize how much I did that until I started really listening. And then it's like, oh, and it's showing up so much louder. It's so much more like powerfully, where I'm like,
Well,
oh, this is amazing.
well, and I've said this on other shows, you have to clear the runway for another plane to land. Like
Yeah.
if you're afraid to let that go or hesitant to let that go, that new plane, bigger, better, can't come in. And I've said this to people before, simply about this podcast, because I heard this podcast was supposed to be launched last June in 2022. I waited until December of 2022 to launch it. And so I started saying, I'm starting to listen to those voices I don't need medication from, right?
Yeah.
But they get louder, and call it spirit, call it universe, call it God, whatever you call it. But if you don't obey it, and it's meant for you to be doing, it gets louder and situations get harder until you actually start doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I was in a yoga. This is a little bit of a sidetrack, but I'm just thinking about like words in this stuff can be complicated, right? Because it's a safe space for everyone. It doesn't matter to me what your divine source is. I was in a yoga teacher training, or it was a yoga training continuing ed thing. And the teacher, I wish I could remember his name, but he kept saying the you of you. And I was like, well, that's it. It's the you of you. It's like the capital Y you. It's the capital S self. It's like that, whatever your inner light is, whether you call it a soul or divine guidance, or like, it doesn't matter to me the words you use, but it's like that witness that just knows, like that knows it's for the best and highest good, that knows it's connected to the light, that knows, it's like this calm peace that is where everything is coming from. It's love. I mean, that's where I go to. I'm like, well, love wins every time, doesn't it? If we're really in that place.
Yeah. Love and gratitude are supposed to be our highest vibration, and I found, back to this podcast, that because I've been doing this, so many beautiful stories have gotten to be told, but so much healing has gotten to be done, both from the person telling the story and the listener listening to the story. I've seen so many transformations just by listening to what I was supposed to do, which was get this platform out for them to have a space to do it.
It's a beautiful thing. It's no different than the time at, to me, that example that I gave, right? When we tell our story, there is an energetic movement within that. And when we tell it from a space of being in service to potentially help someone else, that's amazing. And then the someone else's who you help, that, to know you're not alone in a struggle, whatever your struggle is. And I guarantee you, it doesn't matter what your struggle is. You aren't alone. There is someone else on this planet that has experienced something similar. Definitely not your exact experience. I'm not taking away, like, it's unique to you, and they're all a little different, but we're not so different. We're not so different after all. I was just at a women's retreat and I did tarot readings, and it was amazing to me, how open everyone was. And it was partially because of the space that was created by the event organizers, but then also I want to share a thing that has changed my life, and I use it before tarot readings and healing sessions, but it's also like just on a daily basis. And that is, I ask my ego to step aside so that I can be divinely connected to receive answers, guidance, and healing for the best and highest good. In other words, if I just get my ego out of the way, and I invite people to do that before sessions, whether it's a tarot reading, any kind of healing session, and that that somehow like unlocked, like the whole weekend just felt unlocked for everyone. And it was, and I'm not saying I did that. I'm just saying the space, the container that was provided for everyone. And then, I was listening, in tarot readings, you get like deeply connected, soul connected. And all of the stories I was hearing, I was like, gosh, we're all so different, and we're not different at all. We're so very much the same in the things that we've endured and healed from, and are healing from, and are working on. And when you can come together in a space where that is the intention, and the goal is to just be together in love, if you want to simplify it. Oh, it was so beautiful. It was amazing.
I think if we can get into a place where everything we do is driven by taking our ego out of it, it improves communication, it improves relationships, it improves understanding, it improves healing, it improves service to others. Like if you just wake up today and say, okay, take my ego out of it, God, universe, spirit, whoever you are that I believe in, what am I supposed to do today that serves my greatest good? And take your ego out of what that is supposed to look like. I think all those other things improve immensely.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to give the ego a bad rap. Like it has a purpose and a place and a function, but for this specific stuff, like to just ask it to get out of the way so that you can just be like divinely connected to, maybe I should just point to my heart, right? To the you of you. And then you can take it from wherever you take it, receive it from wherever you receive it. And that intention is so powerful. It's so powerful. Yeah. And it just seems like it's been coming up a lot. Like empath has been coming up a lot. And I think a lot of more people are realizing, oh, wait, I've been feeling this my whole life and didn't even know. Now that I know, now what?
Right.
It's an amazing thing to have an awareness around, and then to learn how to work with that and manage,
So I want to switch gears for just a minute.
Yeah.
You, amongst all of your transformation, later this year, you're still going back to Thailand to do some more exploring and have some fun. And you're bringing your spouse or your partner with you, which is an amazing journey, because I know that he's been, in lockstep with your transformation and healing, and has been a good support there. But a lot of us now in this day and age of 2023 moving into 2024 have a podcast, right? But you started a podcast, but you did a little twist to it. You started it with your son, correct?
I did.
Yeah. And not many of us can get our young children, he's in his 20s, can get those to sit down and even have a conversation with us without a microphone. You managed to do it with a microphone. Tell me about that evolution a little bit, because I've listened to your show. It's really fun.
He and I have always had we go deep when we have our conversations. And I think I was on another podcast, and they said, I think we were talking about, soul connected conversations and having deep dives. And I'm blessed in that I have that with both of my boys. Like we feel comfortable talking to each other, and it's a beautiful thing. And I think it's how we all show up, and we really want to show up in love and an actual give and take conversation, and true listening and true heartfelt conversation. And somebody was like, you should start a podcast with your son. And I was like, I should start a podcast with my son. And people have been telling me I should start a podcast for a while. And I was like, yeah, that's not going to happen. But then when they said with my son, I was like, oh, like I heard that, right? And I was like, okay. And so I brought it up to him. I was like, hey, Andrew, would you ever want to do a podcast together? He's like, I would do that. And I was like, wait, what? Like, I was not expecting the yes, because he's, he can be really private. And I just didn't think he'd want to do it on a mic. I just figured, our conversations are us. And we had a couple talks, it didn't even take much. I was just like, never will this podcast, if it ever starts in, like pricking into our relationship in a negative way, like that's it. It's like, I can keep going without you. Like, you don't need to be a part of this, or we can close it down, whatever that looks like. And he was like, yep, that's a good priority. That's a good intention. And there we landed. And honestly, like I had a friend tell me, I really think your podcast is going to help parents and adult kids specifically, just learn how to show up intentionally with each other and have an open conversation. I was like, never thought that might be a result of the podcast. Our intention is just to, I don't know, we want to connect with each other, and then whatever.
It's called hypothetically intentional.
Yeah.
And we'll drop some links on how people can find it on Spotify and wherever else, you're podcasting. But what I love about it, the banter back and forth is fun and lively, but it's interesting to hear how the younger generation thinks, because they don't always say it, but like your phrase, issues in the tissues.
Yeah.
And then your son is like, when he found out, he's like, what? That's what it means? I thought it was like tears in a Kleenex. No, it's like deep. So even that he grew up in your household in that environment now has a new understanding of what it is and that you actually were saying. But your guys' banter is so light and free, and that's not always there with our younger children or our adult children. And to hear the banter, I think it's a great concept, and I love that you're doing it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's funny. The other day, I listen to them when they come out because he edits them, and I'm realizing he doesn't really take out anything. He just makes the sound better, and the intro or whatever, and
puts in a bumper, and that's about it.
Puts in a little humor every now and again with sound effects. But I don't realize when it's been a big gap between when I've seen my kids, I actually, like, my soul aches for them. And I forget that that is one of my self-care requirements, is that I need to connect with my kids, because we get busy and we know we're always there for each other, but sometimes we forget to be intentional about creating space and time for each other or with each other. And I just, if I'm in a funk, I'm just going to listen to my boy, because he just cracks me up. And we're going to have Jake, my older son, on there as well. And I cannot wait for that, because then I have my full package resource of my kids on together, and they just fill my cup. They warm my
What's the age difference between the two?
They're 3 years apart.
Okay. So Jake's the oldest?
Yeah, he's older.
And then how old is Andrew?
Andrew will be 23 the end of this year. Jake is 25.
Okay. So
right now,
my daughter's 24. She'll be 25 in March, and then my son just turned 32. So it's kind of interesting. And it's interesting because in our household now, our son has actually started to want to come over and have conversation and want to speak about deep meaning things that are going on. Like, we don't have to chase him down to pull teeth like a dentist to try to get what the hell's going on with you, and it's such, like, sometimes my wife will just be like, huh? He actually came over and he talked. Like, he didn't sit on his phone, and he wasn't just like scrolling. He was actually very chatty, and she's always so thrilled when that happens,
But
it's what we all want, is to be able to have that. And now you've packaged it in a way that's fun and enlightening, and good humor, and there's actually a lot of humor in what you guys do, but there's a lot of depth in what you guys are talking about, which is what I love.
Yeah, we don't do surface layer very well. We tend to go deep dive right from the gate. It always surprises us, which it shouldn't, because we've been doing
you go deep dive and you forget to even tell who you are. Like, you're like, we're just into the conversation. You guys should already know who we are. You're here. We're here. You should know us.
Yeah, it's terrible. And even like I had my cousin listen to it and he's like, Michelle, you guys should probably tell people to like and subscribe and follow you and rate you and all that stuff. And I was like, oh yeah. He's like, I mean, I don't really know what you're driving people to. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I didn't start this like, hey, find my this program and find my that program and find my this. It's like, can we provide some sort of value, whether it be just a little bit of joy or an aha moment in every episode, at least one, I don't know.
And I don't think you need to drive people to, like, in this, I think this will be, I don't know, the 40, almost getting close to the 40th episode. I haven't driven anyone anywhere,
That
but
wasn't my intention.
yeah, it wasn't my intention either, but my personal hits have gone up. My private Facebook group has tripled. My business page has quadrupled, and I have subscribers on a YouTube platform that only had me on it, when I started. So organically, people want, if they want what you have or like what you do, they'll seek you out. I don't know that you have to drive people to it, and
Yeah,
they'll
and that was
subscribe
just
and
his
like.
question.
Yeah, but they'll subscribe and like your stuff because it's good. Like, I don't, one thing that I'm not, and my wife will chuckle, I don't pretend to be Willy Wonka. Like, no one pays me to sugarcoat anything. Like, you're going to get what you get, and that's it. Right. And you guys don't sugarcoat. You don't shy away from anything, but you sprinkle it in with some good humor and some good conversation. And it's really beautiful to just hear a mother and her son just talking. Like, it's great.
Yeah, we'll see where we go. I'm excited about it. I mean, I don't anticipate it changing too terribly much, other than we'll have an actual like topic thing that we want to talk about. Cause he's like, Mom, let's find stuff, which he doesn't know this. Well, maybe he does now, but I'm definitely going to I have some poems they wrote when they were kids.
Oh,
100% pulling them out.
sure.
I'm 100% going to use those on the podcast.
Yeah.
We can talk about and break them down. Their second grade poem about asparagus,
Well, it's a great thing, and we'll drop some links so people can find you. Michelle, what is on your horizon now that you've taken this next leap this past year?
More teaching. I'm definitely diving into more mastermindy type stuff. Like, let's get in and choose self-healing. I'm realizing, because I'm doing more speaking at other events, and that's leading me to understand that I'm really passionate about helping people find what they even might want to heal. Right? Like, to just open a door so that self-healing becomes safe. I think it seems so scary. It did for me for a long time, because I didn't even know what it could possibly look like. And I think just like, that's it.
Well, I'll tell you this, having just been around you, some excavating has gone on even without you purposely excavating. And I'm currently, at the time of this taping, up in Minnesota. I normally reside in Arizona, but I'm closer to you now for other reasons. But I grew up for my first 9 years in Minnesota, and I didn't grow up in the nice part of Minneapolis. I grew up in the regions where I had to carry a knife as a kindergartner to school. And having been around you and some of those layers coming off, there are some things from my childhood that I didn't realize there's a difference between acknowledging something's there and handling it. Like, oh yeah, that shit was there and I'm good with it. Or no, let's go heal it. Right. There's a big difference. So what happened is that I looked up my kindergarten, elementary school.
I don't know what you're going to say, but I have the goosebumps super loud right now. So I'm really excited.
I found out that it had been torn down a year after I left. So I found the crossroads of where it was, and my wife and I drove out there, and there's a little park and a little play area there now. And we got out and I walked, and I'm starting to get goosebumps.
Oh my gosh.
I walked the grounds. And the first question I asked her, can you hear the children? Because I can. And we spent some time, me just releasing all that childhood stuff that I'd never in 50 plus years even acknowledged was an issue. And we got back in the car and we left, and I knew that some healing had happened. But with someone who would have tried to take a stick of dynamite to that, I would have never even thought that I needed to go stand on that soil.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. And so that's the power of an excavator versus a dynamite. So
it's so powerful. And you know, like, just, I don't want to get us on a whole nother tangent, but I will say that inner child stuff, like that, the fact that you could go back to that place is amazing. I went back in my mind's eye to my 3-year-old self and told her what she needed to hear to heal, just what I didn't even know needed to be healed. And it was amazing. And I just realized, like, there's layers, like those layers that we talk about that we get to uncover. When we uncover them gently, you get to make a choice to go back to your childhood, the location of your school, and you get to spend time in that space and then process and integrate whatever that looks like. Release, process, integrate. And I mean, the whole entire time you were talking, like, I need a blanket. That's so many goosebumps. That was intensely powerful for you. I can imagine. I mean, I can't imagine, and I can imagine all at the same time. Like, it's yours and it's personal, but I've had similar experiences, and that's it. Like, that is it. That is exactly what I'm trying to say in words that I just have a hard time getting to, is just that finding those things that we can go in and give ourselves a hug, or like release something that we didn't even know we were hanging on to, that added a layer of some sort of story that we hang on to that is no longer helping.
Yeah. And
to love it.
For me, it released a lot of unknown stuff that I was carrying, and anger that I didn't realize I was carrying. So both are, you know, much better for it. So I always love spending time with you. You are a soul sister forever, and someone who brings light to my life and my wife's life for sure. As we wrap up, as I always do, I ask, you know, what does a warrior spirit mean to Michelle?
I probably answer this different every time.
So
I think today,
evolves like we do.
I think today it's that person who's willing to really go in and love themselves. It's not an easy thing to do. And that takes a lot of courage, because you're going to find some shit you don't want to love. But damn it, it's lovable. Even the shit that you think isn't. Like, it's made you. You're here because of all of that. And I believe that all of that, like that stuff that you healed on the playground, that created a space and a wisdom within you that now you get to hold space for another human who's had a similar experience or has a similar story or something that's not helping them anymore. And you get to help them transform that into something that is for the best and highest good. It doesn't get any better than that.
I love it. And I love that you're a part of my warrior spirit tribe. And may you have many blessings as you continue your transformation. And, you know, maybe there's a part 3 somewhere.
I hope so. There's definitely more to be continued for the soul journey that we're on together, you and Elsa and I, and whoever else joins the likeness. But I am so grateful. Like, I don't have words. It's here and it's good. And I thank you.
Well, we appreciate it. And I hope you have a rest of your day as blessed as you've blessed ours. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.